Live on WFLA Now. Feel good and live your best life with Bloom Health Club. Here's Gail Guayardo.
All right, today we are talking about relationship trends, relationship red flags, and maybe bringing back a little spark into your love life. I'm your host, Gail Guayardo, joined alongside Bloom Tampa Bay digital reporter and lead producer, Brody Waddell. Our guest today is behavioral scientist and the author of 7 Layers of a Successful Relationships. Dr. Gino Collura, welcome to the Bloom Health Club.
Oh, thank you guys so much. I'm excited about this discussion. We're going to get a little spicy today, huh?
Me too.
Yeah. Me too. We are going to get spicy, but first I need to know, how does one become a behavioral scientist, and how did you get so ingrained in relationships? Because I'm going to say, people need help.
No, they absolutely do. So you know what the catalyst was for me is I grew up in a household with 2 very traditional parents, and they're getting ready to celebrate their 50th wedding anniversary, right? So it's just not something that you see very much of nowadays, right? Now, so coming up, look, I'll be completely honest, my relationships, I was all over the place, right? So from teens to 20s to 30s, and everything was a bit chaotic until I was very blessed and fortunate enough to find my wife, right? Which allowed things to kind of settle down. But along that way, right, I was getting my PhD at the University of South Florida and focusing specifically on relationship resiliency, right? And so how it is that 2 people can come together to stand the test of time and all the adversities that life brings us, because we all know, right, life is one big challenge after another.
It is. And today, you joined us on Bloom, which was awesome. We talked a lot about relationship red flags. And I think that the number one thing in relationships is if you can spot those red flags early and address them, then that gives you a fighting chance to make a go of it.
The biggest thing that we run into, and we see this in relationships all the time, is that people like to take things that kind of seem minuscule in the very beginning, and they like to tuck it under a rug. Right. Well, the problem with that is that those little things that you can tuck under a rug, after a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5, they turn into elephants, right? And if you don't address them head on, if you don't have the communication skills and tools between you and your partner, it really becomes problematic because you get so far down the road, you don't know how to go back and fix it. Now you have to kind of adjust and adapt while you're dealing with all of life's other stressors at the same time. So the sooner we get ahead, the better. But so many of us just kind of let it go by the wayside, or we lie to ourselves every single day.
We lie, but I think deep down inside, we know. I mean, I've been married for decades now to my husband, Mark, and I know, I feel it when there's something that needs to be addressed. Right away, it's just the hairs on my neck start to stand up. And you say one of the worst things you can do is brush it. You have to take the bull by the horns when it comes to your relationship, because that's got to be your top priority.
Without a doubt. But here, the big thing with this, right? We've all heard this before. It's not the what, it's the how. Right? How am I saying it? How am I presenting that thing that's bothering me to my partner, right? Because if I'm coming across with attitude and I'm just dishing it, well, they're going to get defensive, right? And now they have a bone to pick with me, and now we don't get anywhere constructive. Now, does that mean that we don't express emotion? Absolutely not. If you're passionate about what you're feeling and what you're saying, then absolutely bring the passion, but bring it in a light that's going to be constructive, and it's not going to put your partner down. And that's one of the biggest things, is cutting them down, which we see all the time. That's why the divorce rates are what they are.
Yeah, and they're pretty staggering.
They are.
So sticking with the theme of red flags, I know Brody has some questions for you about specific red flags, whether, talk to us, Brody, what you got?
Well, red flags in general. First off, I want to ask you, why does it seem like some people have so much more success in relationships than others almost inherently?
Yeah.
Is there something to that? Like, why do some people get it like early 20s and other people are like late bloomers with it?
So this is a really interesting question, right? And we start thinking about the nature of being empathetic for the other person, understanding where someone else is coming from. You know, when we are ambitious and we're young and we want to go after and do things, right? We have a particular type of value system, right? And that value system is predicated off of goals that we have. Well, if along that way we happen to meet somebody that really tickles our fancy, it's like, man, like he or she, like they've got it. I want to be around that person on a regular basis. I want to build something with that person. Well, whatever that person has planned for their life, and then what your plans are for your life, how much flexibility and adaptability do you have? And that's where the kicker is, right? How adaptable are you? Because how much does it mean to you? Do you want that relationship to work, or what's more important, that successful position in your job, right? Or other things that are going on? Or is it, let me make this last, let me build this with this individual? Because we all know, look, Every relationship is give and take. It's
Yeah.
sacrifice. It's work, right? So some people have more adaptability and flexibility. Others, not so much.
Right.
Very interesting. And I'm glad you said sacrifice, because if you are going into a relationship and you don't think you're going to have to make sacrifices, then you're fooling yourself.
Without a doubt. And and this applies to not just communication and time, but look, even when we start talking about sexual health in a relationship, right? What is it that you're willing to, because look, one of the biggest things that we run into is folks feeling like their partner's selfish, right? When it comes to sex. And the reality of it is that if your partner feels like all you care about is yourself in that moment, right? A massive disconnect begins to happen, right? So whether it's on the sexual side, on the communication side, on the emotional health side, all of it very much matters. And they have to feel that you're giving something, because that's going to in turn make them want to give as well. And if they don't, well, you talk about a red flag, that's a massive red flag.
All right. So Brody has some sex questions.
I do. I have some sex questions.
All right.
Come on, big guy. What you
All
got?
right.
What you
Pivoting
got?
off of that, how do differences in sort of like libido or sexual needs in a relationship? How can you like sort of meet in the middle if one person is so different from the other one? And especially like, and I feel like we've all heard the stories, or maybe in our own relationships we've seen this, where maybe it starts and it's just like pure fireworks and magic all the time, and then maybe it just completely falls off of a cliff.
Yeah.
How do you go about like bridging that divide? And also on that same note, are there some things that you say communication is so important, but when it comes to things like attraction or maybe a fall off in that, is it better to not sort of face that head on and try to do things to address it, or be like, why aren't we having as much sex? Right. That's a sure way to be like, okay, well, now we're really not going to have any sex, right?
So this is where it gets interesting, right? So when we break down the concept of intimacy, right? So intimacy, there's two vital components there, right? There's talk, the quality and depth of talk that happens between myself and my partner, and the quality of touch. Right. So for guys, unfortunately, a lot of times we kind of miss this boat and we just kind of want to get right to it. Right.
Yeah.
Where a lot of times for women, it's let's build up to it. Right. Let's kind of have more of a deeper connection for us to understand that, look, it's not just about that moment, right, where we're both equally satisfied. It's everything leading up to it. Right. So when you start to look at the variations that exist and sex drive and sexual satisfaction, you have to understand what makes your partner tick, right? Are they someone that needs a little more talk? Do they need a different type of touch? What is it that he or she likes? What's going to appease them? And even if I don't enjoy doing it, at that moment in time, guess what? It's not about me, right? It's about them, right? And if you can have that mutual exchange, then you start to cook with some really good stuff. But if you're constantly focused on what I want and what I want to get, and after that happens, I'm done. I cannot tell you guys how many folks I have the privilege of working with where that's a reality.
Really?
It's just about me.
They can just go straight to the cigarette, even though that's not a thing anymore?
100%.
Right.
And you have one partner who's willing to give whatever, and then you have the other one that's like willing
Who's
to
the
take.
taker.
That's exactly right.
So speaking of sex, I have a question about if you're in a long-term relationship, that's where you get into the step and repeat of life, where, it maybe, how do you spice it up without it being embarrassing or like,
The thing about it, right, and so John Mayer made this song, right, Your Body's a Wonderland, right? And so I bring that up because it's a very important part to not forget, right? Never forget the mystery. Never forget the love that existed, that passion when you guys first kicked off. And then you get into this grind, right? Year after year goes by and it's kind of the same thing, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat.
Yeah.
You forget the magic that was once there, right? And the magic can become prevalent again. You just have to make the conscious decision to look at your partner and be like, look at what we've built together. Look at what we've done together. Look at how beautiful or how handsome you are. That is a massive turn on. But if I'm just looking at my partner as, oh yeah, here we go again.
I gotta check that box.
Right, here we go again.
Do you have to go back to the magic box and maybe find that rabbit that you gotta pull out of the
find
hat?
a rabbit, you find a giraffe, you find a whale, whatever you gotta find. Yeah,
you go back to your old toolkit that maybe you used to use back in the day.
100, and add some new things to it, right? Adventure is always a beautiful thing, right? Adversity is a beautiful thing. Create new challenges between each other. Create things that are new experiences that will forge a different type of bonding between you both, because that's the thing, right? If I'm constantly doing the same thing over and over again, well, nothing changes if nothing changes.
Right.
You change it up, right? Don't be afraid to do it. Is it a little scary at first? Yeah, of course it is, right? But vulnerability is the pathway to liberation, especially when it comes to that intimacy that exists between two people.
Interesting. So who would you say is more primarily responsible for driving in that department? Would it be the male partner, the female partner? Is it equally shared? Like, who should really be taking the charge on that?
That is going to be a highly subjective one, right? Because it depends on the roles, right, that exist within the relationship. Some folks have more female dominance, right? Some have more male dominance. What it does take is collaboration, right? So you have to figure out what are the lanes that I feel comfortable with and how do I stay in those lanes, but at the same time, how do I push those limits at the same time?
Yeah. Right.
But you have to have that communication. So for me to give you a blanket statement and say who should do it, we could get into some really deep cognitive type stuff as far as leadership, right? And then what that means as far as influence between a man and a woman. But we also live in 2023, right? It's a progressive time. Roles are different than what they were in 1940s and 1930s, right? And so good, bad, or indifferent, you have to recognize that. So it's not a one size fits all.
I like that. And that's actually a perfect transition when you say roles have changed into an article that Brody wrote on BloomTampaBay.com that I want to talk to you about. It's a new trend. There are 5 cities in the country that are leading the way when it comes to age gap in relationships. And it's not just about dating an older guy, because that's kind of that's the it's kind of played out. But it's Miami, Atlanta, Vegas, Orlando, Tampa are in the top 5. Tampa being rounding out top 5. Yep. There's age gaps and in relationships, and speaking of red flags, is that one?
So this is really interesting because you're right. Historically, there has been this notion of older men dating younger women.
Yeah.
Right. And then
who's your daddy?
There's there's a shift in the paradigm where you see older women dating younger men. Yes. Right. And so when you start peeling the layers back on what has happened in the past 30 years, right, at a sociocultural, community-wide level, there's a whole entire shift as far as women breaking that glass ceiling, right? Having a stronger sense of independence and wanting fun and adventure. You're not just a homemaker, right, anymore. Like, you're successful, professional, educated, getting out there doing wonderful things. And a lot of times, younger guys, they bring a little more spirit, they bring a little more adventure, they bring a little more, less of the downing type stuff, right? To where your males that are 40s, 50s, in that age range, right? It's very responsible. I've got my successful career, and it's kind of Monday through Friday, rinse, repeat, right? Well, adventure's fun, right?
True.
And the key word there is fun. You gotta have fun.
I think that's it. With any age, you got to have fun. I mean, I'm not embarrassed to say that I'm 7.5 years older than my husband, Mark. And I would say as we grow old together, because I want to be like 80 something with this dude and still be running strong. But I would say that I think guys, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, guys start to slow down a little faster than women do. And it works out beautifully now. It's almost like that age gap doesn't exist at all. Like you would never know that we're 7.5 years different because I don't know, guys do tend to get comfortable, or am I just speaking out of turn for my husband?
Look, I will tell you from my own experience in the past 10 years with myself, I've noticed it. And I've had to push myself to be like, keep it spicy, right? Like stay adventurous, right? Get out there and do things, right? Because, and it is difficult. There's a lot to be said on a biological level as well. All of us have heard about low T, right, in men, right? That is becoming a much more prevalent issue and challenge amongst the male population in the United States, right? That absolutely has something to do with it. Now, not in a blanket statement, but listen, if you've got a deprivation there and you don't have the same spunk, the same energy, and you don't have that same adventurous spirit, right? That matters. And at the same time, you look at the amount of stress, right, that especially as you're getting older, you're dealing with, and maybe you're forgetting to just stop, take a deep breath, enjoy it, and have a blast. Let me just take it's raining outside. Let's go dance in the rain, right? Let's go do something crazy. Like, why not, right? That is something that absolutely, you will see that more and more and more with younger men than you will with older men. Right. And that is, for sure.
That's a much politer way of saying what one of my friends told me. She's like, I told her about that article and that was happening. She's like, well, the old guys can't get it going anymore. And I'm like, well, I guess that's partially true.
That's the thing. That's the thing.
It is.
We were looking at a lot of cool video of you and your wife, Sadie. And it seems like you guys get out. I mean, I know you're about to have your second baby now, but it looks like you guys get out and about and you have fun together.
We absolutely do. And look, there's a 10-year gap between Sadie and I.
Okay.
Right? So I'm 10 years older than her. So I got to keep up. I got to keep it spicy, right? So look, whether it's salsa dancing or it's she and I going and doing painting lessons together. Look, date night. Ever since we got married, every week without fail, we have had date night. And especially when our first child was born, we never skipped a beat. Now that our second child's going to be born, we're not skipping a beat. But it's always something new. We are always pushing ourselves to try and do new challenges, right? Let's learn together. And that right there has been wonderful. I mean, look, we are in a position, in a place in our lives where we're both very comfortable, but at the same time, we're incredibly fulfilled and we're really, really happy, right? The question is, how do you make it last, right? And it's doing things like that.
I love that. So, and you guys came up with something called husband strength, wife strength that you co-own together. And I
Yes.
know on social media, there's a lot of folks out there giving advice. You come with a lot of experience to do so. Why do you think taking advice and daily nuggets is so important when it comes to strengthening our relationships?
So this goes back to let's go to talk 1950s, 1960s, right? When clinical psychology was really up and coming. There's this concept called operant conditioning. Operant conditioning just means daily doses of something that is conditioned over and over again become a new normal, right? We all know that makes sense. So the entire angle that Sadie and I took was, look, what is something that people can utilize on a daily basis that's not too much, it's not too heavy. I'm not having you read a 3-page blog, right? Rather, it's a quick text message underneath 160 characters that's going to give you some insights, something to do that day for your relationship, something to ponder, something to think about. And each day that goes by, day 1 through, call it 3 months, you look back and what you've done following those little nuggets every single day, and you start to notice the improvements, whether you're a husband or you're a wife, or if you're just in a committed relationship. Doesn't mean you have to have the title of being married. If you love that person, you're committed to that person, that's what we designed it for. Because listen, we live in a rat race nowadays, and there's information coming left, right? There's 50 bajillion different types of apps that are out there as well. We all get tons of emails. So that quick text message once a day to take a look at, let me read it. Got it. One small thing that I can do that takes me less than 2 minutes to do it. And it slowly but surely improves the quality and depth of your relationship. And that's why we did it.
Speaking of relationship advice, Brody, you know, you're out in the field. You're 20,
Playing the
what,
field, that's right.
28? 29. He's
yeah.
29. He's, you know, so do you have any relationship questions for Dr. Gino? I mean, now's your chance.
Throw them at me, guy.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. Well,
Let's
let's start
put
at the
Brody on the
beginning. What do I
spot.
do? How do I talk to a girl, man? How do you do that? No, my question is, it's like really about finding someone that's a good match for you. Because I think especially as men, we can tend to be so beauty focused that we'll overlook so many other things. Like, how do you like really find out what's like what you need? Like I've heard some coaches say, like, actually write down what you really want, what you're looking for. Like, what is your advice for like getting past that? Like, if you're at a point where you found a girl that you like and she likes you back, you know what I'm saying? It's not like, it's nothing about like trying to flirt, learn how to flirt or anything like that, but actually, okay, you've gotten the girl, like, how do you pick the right one? What would you say for men to be on the lookout for?
2 things, right? And you said one of the key words, right, is that you're looking for it. Don't go looking for it. Right. This is really, really big, right? Because when we start having a certain perception, right, of I'm going to go hunting, right, for lack of a better term. Well, if I'm looking for something, a lot of times if I'm that focused on that one thing, the other opportunities that are coming my way that I may be closed off to, and it could be an incredible person, but I just never dialed in because they're not checking all those boxes immediately, you stay closed off to that. That's number 1. Number 2, so there's this concept that we have called the fundamental attribution error. The fundamental attribution error says this. It says no matter what you do or how deep you think you understand someone else, you're never going to truly understand at 100% efficacy why they do what they do. And as guys, right, we're typically logical when it comes to certain things. We want to connect those dots, right, and have a more tangible understanding. Take what is, not what you think could be, right? So take who she is at that moment in time, right, and say, wow, this really resonates with me. I like that. Let's explore that more without putting any hard expectations. Where a lot of guys getting started off kind of miss the boat is expectation management. If you have these crazy high expectations, it's good to have standards, no 2 ways about it, right? But be open to the other possibilities, right, of what that could look like and let it grow organically. Don't pressure it. That's a big thing. We like to pressure, especially if we're excited about meeting this new girl. She's great, she's wonderful. Take your time. And patience, man, if I could have mastered that right when I was your age, I'd be ahead of the game for sure, right? But it's a difficult thing.
It's a virtue.
That's what
It
I
is.
say too.
Have you guys seen that YouTube Crazy Hot Matrix where, you know,
Yes.
there's
You have to be this hot, this crazy. and
Oh,
it's like-
yes, I have
do
seen
you
that. Yeah,
do you
yeah.
follow that rule? I mean,
I
do you
Well,
do
in my
because you
experience,
say
the
you
hottest
like a
ones
little
are the most
spicy.
crazy. Yes, I joke. I'm like,
Yeah.
I like a little bit of crazy. Like,
You know, that does that keep guys going?
I was going to tell you at 29 maybe, but not
there's-
when you get
Not
my
when you
age.
get older.
right.
But I was there. I will
Yes,
tell you,
of
right?
course.
And there's phases that come up because it's exciting, right? It's an
is.
adventure, right? You don't know what to expect. As you get older, that will shift and that
Exactly.
will change, right? Because you want tranquility. At the same time, you want adventure, but you don't want unpredictable adventure that's going to throw you all over the place.
Yeah.
I always joke
And that
to
goes
my
for men
friends-
and women.
I joke to my friends all the time. I'm like, it's like dating 3 different girls and they're all hot. It's the same one.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Well, Dr. Gino, if you have not heard of Bloom, we are a globally syndicated show that is headquartered here at WFLA News Channel 8 in Tampa, Florida, but you can see us all over. We're super excited about the Bloom Health Club. Dr. Gino, you are one of our coveted guests. We love it when you come on the show, and we certainly appreciate you joining us in the club.
Are you kidding me? This is such a privilege and an honor. I love hamming it up with you guys, so thank you so much.
Yeah, it's good. And you can always find us on Spotify and Apple. Don't forget to like us, share us with your friends. We're relatively new to this particular space, so we would love your support. Brody, you're awesome as always. Love working with you, my
Thank you,
friend.
Gail. It's been great talking with you as well, Doctor.
Awesome, Brody. Thank you, buddy.